Here is the budget man talking.
Okay, now the official start. At Toastmasters, we do communications training, we train leaders, we train in communication, leadership, and today we have a special education session with a guest speaker. Now, I have the honour of introducing you to our guest today. He's going to talk about the informative presentation, and it's a workshop. So you know what a workshop means? We'll soon find out. Charles, has anybody clicked on the links to EasySpeak and had a look at his website? Very good. Charles came to us last year and did a presentation for us. We were down in the IAEA library at that time. Today we are in our club room. We meet here twice a month for our regular Toastmasters meetings. Charlie has been a member of Toastmasters since 1985. Anybody who was not born in 1985? Okay.
Tricky question.
Sorry, Carl, I didn't mean to make you feel old. And held all positions in the club numerous times. So positions being in the executive committee, president, vice president education, vice president membership, vice president public relations, secretary, treasurer, sergeant at arms. We also have other positions within the meetings. I assume Charles has also taken on every position in the meetings. You can sign up for the next meeting next week on EasySpeak for any one of the open positions. I've got a note here that says he was area governor twice. Area governor is what we used to call the area, what was I before? Area officer. Area director. Area director, thank you. So we have changed the title from governor to director. But at the time when Charles was in this position, it was still called area governor, which he did twice. And he still loves coming to the meetings when time permits. Charlie first got involved with Toastmasters because he was scared to stand up and speak. Taking this fear in hand and turning it around, he has been training people around Europe since 1981, before he even became a Toastmaster. He's been a professor at Webster University, Vienna since 1992. Charles, I wanted to ask what a licensed Buzan trainer is for mental literacy. What is a Buzan trainer?
Tony Buzan was the guy who invented mind mapping. Any of you heard of mind mapping? And licensed trainer 14 for Tony Buzan. So able to teach mind mapping, speed reading, and memory techniques.
Okay, let me go on to mention mind mapping since 1991, and he's worked for the VU Executive Academy since 2008. Is that the Wirtschaftsuni? Okay, the business university here in Vienna. In the field of negotiation and conflict management. He worked for HPS Earhold Presentation Services as a trainer throughout Europe from 1998 until 2012. He's been a certified life success consultant for Bob Proctor since 2009. That was this weekend he's coming here? This weekend, Bob Proctor. I don't know if there's still tickets available now or not, because I think the closing date was last Sunday, and I have another friend who's involved with that as well. His private interests include skiing, travel, public speaking, and computers. Charlie strongly believes there is a wonderful presenter in each of us just waiting to come out. It's just a matter of learning the right tools. It is my pleasure to invite you all to participate and to welcome Charles as our workshop presenter this afternoon. Welcome, Charles.
One of the things that I've noticed at Toastmasters is that they give you a lot of opportunity to speak, they give you a lot of different information as well, but structure is not one of its strengths. It doesn't really teach you how to prepare a speech very easily. Am I right there? That's one of the things that I've sort of been missing there is, what's the process that you need to go to? You've got this idea I'd like to talk about, but how do you put that into some kind of structure that allows you to literally create a 5 to 7 minute presentation, or for that matter, in the business world, a 30-minute or 20-minute presentation. Your boss asks you, I'd like you to give a presentation on this particular report that you've written. How do you go about structuring it? And that's one of the things that I think is really, really important. And my experience in the business world has shown me time and again that trying to create a template that is easy to remember, so that literally you can, once you've got the concept down, that you can literally prepare a speech, a 5 to 7 minute speech within a matter of minutes. Would that be nice to be able to do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something that I'd like to share with you today. All right. During the course of this next hour and 10 minutes or so, feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. This is a workshop. This is not a speech. So feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. Say, wait a minute, stop, Charlie. Didn't quite understand that. Can we go through that again? That kind of thing. So please feel free to do that. Is that all right with all of you? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I'd much rather work on this as a workshop type of thing as well. And yes, because it is a workshop, that means that you work and I shop. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I'm going to introduce you to the concept of what we call the informative presentation, how to prepare an informative presentation a little bit more effectively and easily as well. Now what's interesting about this particular template that I'd like to share with you is that you can use it not only for preparing speeches. If you have an important telephone call that you need to make, if you have a meeting that you're going to participate in where you really like to gather your thoughts and organize them a little bit more effectively, then this is also a system that you can use very, very easily. If you have a report that you need to write and you're trying to figure out what approach you need to take for that as well, once again, this is another tool that can help you do that very, very easily as well. So this is what I call the idea organizer template. So it's much more than just simply preparing a speech. It's the idea organizer template, being able to organize your ideas into some fashion that helps you be able to get your message across more effectively. How does that sound? Great? Have any of you learned how to organize your ideas before?
Middle, beginning, end.
Middle, beginning, end? Yeah, here's good. Anything else?
Sorry, I am a guest today. May I ask?
Certainly.
So actually it depends on the audience.
Ah, yes it does, doesn't it? How important is the audience?
Which level of the audience? Is there basic or advanced? So depending on that, you have to prepare your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, obviously audience analysis plays a very, very important role. Who's my audience? Who am I talking to? And what is the message that I'd like to have them walk away with as well? It's got to be very clear in your own mind too. So, what I'd like to do is jump right into things here. And for that, I'm going to, let's see, how good are our reactions? Are they pretty good? They're good. Catch. There we go. You're getting that. We got a couple more here as well. Ready? Boop, boop, boop. Okay. A little bit of exercise. Now, I'm passing out these Post-its, and the idea for us is that if any of you need any pencils, I've got plenty of pencils here as well. You need something to write with.
Yes.
You need a brain. You need to switch it on. Okay? And what I'd like you to do is, we are literally in the next about 35, 40 minutes going to prepare a 5 to 7 minute speech. Okay? And I'd like to take you through this step by step so that you understand how it works. And if any of you would like to, you could also present this to the rest of us as well. So if there were any volunteers at the end of the day to do a short presentation, you're certainly welcome to, depending on the time that we have here. But what I'd like you to do is write down on the very first post-it here in the front. First of all, the post-its are designed in this size because I do not want you to write a book. I'm not interested in you writing really small print on this. Just working keywords, only keywords, key ideas only, not complete sentences. All right, that will allow for more associative factors to take place in your brain if you just write with keywords. And that's what we're really looking at right now, is trying to create literally a red line and not detail. Detail comes second. First of all, we want to figure out what the red line is for the presentation. So here, our first step is for us to choose what topic do we want to talk about. And I could ask you to write down on the post-it here a topic that you would like to talk about for 5 to 7 minutes. That you feel comfortable talking about, you have enough information available, you like to talk about it. Hi.
Hi, Charlie.
You're gonna come up front?
May I?
Yeah.
Even though I'm late, excusez-moi, s'il vous plaît. What have I missed?
Just the beginning.
Is it a topic that we should talk about, or what, or any kind of topic?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
why we should be closing your needle?
So you need a post-it?
If you're not like a topic.
Oh, my pleasure.
We always benefit.
A topic to do, you want
And
to.
I'd like you to write on the post-it a topic that you'd like to talk about for 5 to 7 minutes.
We ourselves.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Each of you write a topic down that you'd like to talk about for 5 to 7 minutes.
Something technical?
If you would like to practice something a little bit more technical, that's great. Basically informative in nature, because this is an informative presentation. So you'd like to inform your colleagues about something, how to cook spaghetti, it's a possibility, or something a little bit more business-oriented, job-oriented. So you got a topic there? Right. You do you have a topic? Great. Okay. Get one of those as well. Good. Get one of those. You've got a topic as well, okay? You got a topic? That's a long topic there. Try to keep your post-its really simple. Don't get lost in too much detail.
Oh, I just have four topics.
Just pick one.
Oh,
Just
no.
pick one. You've got to pick one. Okay?
Okay.
This is to learn how to use the tool here. Okay? Do you have a topic? Yep. Great. Tom, you want to do?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Okay. A pretty long topic.
But it's a sentence.
Yeah, can you shorten it down to a couple of keywords? I know I'm picky, aren't I?
So, needle die.
You hate me today.
Why you need one?
Yes. That's why.
Okay, now what I'm giving you here is a template. This is called the open format, which means that you can use this for anything, anytime you need to organize your thoughts. You just need to have post-its of that size. and you can do this. I'm going to give you afterwards, I'm going to give you directions as to how to do this, just in case you don't remember what I'm talking about. Sometimes words do go right in one ear and out the other. But I've got some directions here as well, and a plastic sheath so you can put all of this and file it nicely in your folder so you can access it again later on the next time you need to do a speech. Okay? Now what I'd like you to do is take this and fold it in half, like this, in a vertical manner. I know this is going to be a phone. So you have these 5 boxes facing you. Okay? Good? Perfect. Okay. Now, you go ahead and you take one of your Post-it that's got the topic on it, and surprise, surprise, the Post-it size just happens to be the same size as the square here. Just coincidental, right? You put that on top of topic. Now, you'll notice underneath that it also has length, location, and purpose. You can also add in underneath your topic, how long is the speech supposed to be? Is it going to be a 5 to 7 minute, like a Toastmasters, or is it going to be a longer one, so you know what your time frame is? In this case, a 5 to 7 minute speech. Okay? And location, is it going to be here in this room? What's the number of this room?
AO671.
AO671, or is it going to be in one of your departmental meeting rooms? Where's the presentation going to take place? So you're already starting to visualize where you will be when you're doing this presentation. Okay, in this case it will also be here in this room. So you write that down as well. Alright? So that's the beginning. Then we have our audience. Who is our audience going to be? For example, your speech. What are you going to be talking about? May I use you as an example?
Julia.
Julia. Is that okay if I use you as an example? Okay, so what is your topic going to be?
Reflections on travelers' lifestyle.
Okay, all right.
But it's not very formative, I think it's reflections. I was thinking
No, that's all
about
right. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, and who will you be presenting to?
us.
Here, Toastmasters meeting. So be at a Toastmasters meeting then?
Yeah.
So fellow Toastmasters. Okay, good. And that's what you'd write down there, is fellow Toastmasters. And then you've got, if you take a Post-it and put it on there, and you write down on that line there, you can see the line coming through there, the audience. Put in fellow Toastmasters, is that who your audience is? And then you've got room for 2 smileys. There are 2 circles there, and you can make a little smiley or a frowny, depending on what you want. So you've got topic and presenter. And here, the first one, the first circle represents what do you think the audience's attitude is towards your topic? Interested, neutral, disinterested. So just three different kinds of smileys. So real smiley, if you think they're interested in your topic. If you think they're sort of neutral towards your topic, then sort of a straight line through a mouth. And if they're not very interested, then you can make a little frowny. Yes?
What about if you don't know?
Then I would probably just make a straight line because you're not sure, so that means you need to approach it a little bit differently. And what do you think their attitude is about you, the presenter? Their attitude about you. Obviously, it should be a smiley.
No.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Okay. This just gets you to think a little bit about who your audience is and what their approach is. If you don't know the audience at all, they don't know you, you probably have 2 straight lines. If you know the audience pretty well and you feel pretty confident, then you can probably put 2 smileys in there. If you're talking about a bad news topic where you have to introduce some bad news to them, they might be positive about you, but negative about your topic.
That was last week's Maria Teresa speech.
Hostile audience.
Okay. Now, we need to think about our audience a little bit more. So we take our next Post-it, so that you've got a second Post-it. Now we take a third Post-it, and we put it there over interest and relevance. Now I need you to think about this from your audience's point of view. Put yourself in your audience's shoes, what I said there. Talk about you and your interests and you bore me. But if you talk about me and my interests, then you fascinate me. So why is this of interest and relevance to your audience? The people, the audience that you've written up here. Why is this of interest and of relevance to your audience? Force yourself to put yourself into the audience's shoes. Why would they be interested in this topic? And I'll tell you right now, if you don't know that, then they certainly won't know either. You need to think about it from your audience's point of view. Why would they find this of interest, of relevance for them?
Isn't it? It depends on me,
Absolutely.
how I present and make the audience interested in my talk. So it is my responsibility when I'm addressing some people. They should get interested in the topic I'm speaking.
Yeah.
So I should make it interested.
For them.
Yes.
Why is it interesting for them? Why would they be interested in it?
No,
That's what you
then
need to
what
ask.
for I talk?
Pardon?
What for I talk if my audience are not interested in my talk?
Because you're trying to persuade them maybe to adopt something of
So they
yours,
should be
to think
interested.
outside of what they're thinking.
They should be interested. They're sitting here spending time. They should be interested in the talk.
Yeah, they should be, shouldn't they? And are they?
No.
Because especially if you as the presenter are standing up and talking, if I stand up here and I talk about how great I am, how wonderful I am, how interesting is that for you?
No,
No,
If I stand up and talk about how great you are,
Could be funny.
it is the topic I'm saying, not how great I am or how great you are. It is the topic.
I
That should
agree.
interest the people.
yeah? And why is this topic interesting for them? If you don't know, then they won't know.
But I believe that if we can have a common use case with the audience, if we can connect our speech with the audience and engage them inside, so they will be interested, even if the topic is not useful for the audience. So.
I am 100% convinced that you can take any topic and make it interesting for the audience.
Exactly.
The sex life of the fruit fly could be interesting if you approach it from the audience's point of view. If you approach it from your own, then it's not going to be interesting. I'm asking you to identify here what makes it interesting, what makes it relevant for the audience. That's what you need to think about. And don't assume that this topic is interesting for the audience. Because what does assume mean? What does the word assume mean?
Produce more.
Your guess is what's impossible reflections,
Yeah. The non-dictionary definition of assume is
Don't know.
to make an ass of you and me. That's what assume really means. To make an ass of you and me. And if we make assumptions that our audience knows what we're talking about, that can be very dangerous. And that's why I ask you to please think about it. Why is this particular topic that you've chosen of interest and of relevance for your audience? So that you don't make an ass of yourself and of your audience. Clarify these assumptions. And put yourself in your audience's shoes. Once again, if you talk about yourself, you will bore the listeners. If you talk about the listeners and their needs, why is this important for you? Then the listeners are going to listen to you. And that's why in your introduction, your first couple of minutes of your presentation, of your speech, and I challenge you to listen to these at every Toastmaster from now on, every Toastmaster meeting, when you listen to a presentation, the introduction to a speech, in the introduction, how often do you hear the word I by the speaker? And how often do you hear the word you by the speaker? And if you hear the word I and me and my, then they're talking about themselves and not about you. But if the speaker talks about you, your interests, your desires, your needs, your help, then you will start to listen automatically, much, much more. because you are approaching the relevance for your speakers, the interest for your speakers. And I challenge you the next time you go to a speech, a presentation outside of Toastmasters, just listen to the introduction. And those introductions that really grab the interests are the ones where the person is speaking to you about you and your needs and your desires, not about their own.
It's also, if I may say, I remember I listened to a presentation speech made by Schwarzenegger, and he talked about himself the whole time. But the way he talked about it was that you could relate to what he said, in the sense that he said, how did I do it? How did I manage? What are the obstacles that I overcome? And so on and so forth. But in the way he did it, or what, although he was talking about himself, it was, you can do it too. You see what I mean?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. He was making it very much audience-oriented.
Right. Although he was talking about himself, but that's the way he did it.
And a lot of good inspirational speakers can do that very, very well. But this isn't an inspirational speech that we're trying to design here. This is your typical run-of-the-mill informative speech that you have to give, especially if your boss says, I want you to stand up and give a speech about the, give us a status report on the situation. Prepare a status report. What are you going to talk about? You're going to make it really eye-oriented, or are you going to find some way of making it more audience-oriented? That's the key. That's the challenge. And if you can make it audience-oriented, you're going to be better off every time. So, why is it of interest and relevance to your audience? And tied in very closely to that is to take another post-it, your fourth post-it then, and write down what are the benefits that your audience is going to get out of it. What are the benefits going to be for your listeners?
So the first thing is, why are they listening to you? And the second thing is what they can get out of it.
Yeah. These are closely linked together, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what I want them to gain out of it, not what necessarily would. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah, what you want them to gain out of it, but you tell them you will gain this.
Okay, so make it very explicit.
And finally, then, in order to get that benefit, what are you going to ask them to do? What is your call for action going to be? Now, I personally am convinced, some other people may not be, but I personally am convinced that every speech that you give should finish with a call for action. And I think that is possible to do with every speech that you give. Otherwise, why are you giving the speech?
So how can we summarize a speech without that it doesn't be interpreted as manipulating? Because sometimes you start talking with the audience, and the audience, they have diverse ideas, maybe they don't accept, and if you advise at the end, it sounds like we are manipulating and we want that they do what we say for 2 hours. So,
because that's, you really need to adjust it to your audience's needs and what is of interest and of relevance for them. So it might be that you just simply ask them to please think about this approach. But you need to ask them to do something with this information that you're giving them. Otherwise, why are you giving them the information? And most of us don't take advantage of that opportunity.
is it also sometimes fine when we give a speech to our audience, we let them they decide? For example, we leave them because, I mean, for period of time. Maybe they figure it out because
You can finish with that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you've gotten all the options on the table now. Your job over the next 3 weeks is to decide which option is going to be best for you. But it's your job to make that decision. Now you're telling them what to do with the information as well. But otherwise, if you just simply say, these are the options, thank you very much, and walk away, yeah, so what about them? Tell them what to do with the information that you're giving them. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and theirs. And a lot of people will argue with me on that. Fine, that's perfectly fine. You know, if you don't want to finish with a call for action, you're passing up an opportunity. That's all that I can say to that. It's literally like walking down the street and seeing a 500 € note on the ground. It is your choice. You can say, ooh, look at a 500 € note. And just keep on walking. It's your choice. It's a shame that you don't pick it up and take advantage of it, but it is your choice. I think you should pick up that 500 € note. And I think, honestly, that you should also finish your presentation with a call for action. But most of us say what at the end of our presentations, or at the end of our speeches?
Thank you.
Thank you. And why?
I don't say that now, there is a
Good. But why do most of us say thank you at the end of our speeches?
Because of
We're glad
time.
it's over.
No, because the time does end. I mean, it's the time.
No.
The audience listen to you, no? Because they give you your time,
Time
and they're
and
trying to listen to you.
Then, if you really mean that, then why are you looking down at the table or looking down at the podium when you're saying it? Observe other people when they say thank you and how they say thank you at the end of their speech, and ask yourself seriously, were they thanking me for attending, or were they just saying thank you because they didn't know how to finish their presentation? I've got nothing against thanking the audience. Build that into your conclusion. I'd like to thank you all very much for your attendance today. Or I'd like you to thank you all very much for coming today. It's been an enjoyment working with you.
It's a filler. It's a filler.
But it's a filler.
It's a filler. Not necessary.
That's my idea of speech.
Yeah.
Never say thank you.
Never thank you.
Because the audience should be thanking you.
Yeah, we should be
That's
thanking
the-
whom for a good
But
presentation.
as a presenter, you can be also humble enough to say thank you for taking a time.
I've got no argument with that at all, but watch most of the people who are doing it, and they don't mean it. Most of us don't even recognize it. Most of us don't even recognize that we say thank you at the end of our presentation, or at the end of our speech. We're not even aware of it. It is so automatic. And I think that you can replace that thank you with your call for action, and you will be much, much better off.
We're done in
It could be also, I'm grateful that we are sharing together our thoughts. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, then say it. Then I'm saying I'm really thankful. I'm really grateful for sharing the thoughts today. Then say that and build that into your conclusion. But to say, right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. That's what I hear so often. And that's really a shame.
After your talk, there are several questions. That shows how well you have interacted with the audience. So if there are few questions, then it is good. You have interacted really with the audience and they have learned from you.
Yeah. And at the end of your Q&A session, what do you say then?
If nobody asks, then you are a bad speaker.
Right. And I'm right. Back to the same thing again. You have not completed your speech until you've walked away. And we all know that. We all know that at Toastmasters, especially as Toastmasters. Your speech is not finished until after it's finished. But most of us are finishing our presentation and leaving it very poorly. Right, thank you very much. Instead of waiting and standing and accepting the applause. That's what good Toastmasters, watch them on TV as well. Watch them on YouTube and that type of thing. Those are the people that wait and accept the audience. Accept the applause, smile a little bit, then they walk away. But they walk away with pride as well, not, oh, my God.
But sometimes the audience does not know also when speech is finished, you know, so when we say
And that
thank
is
you,
the speaker's
it's
problem.
full stop for me. If you say thank you, that means that you mean full stop, my speech is
Yeah,
over. So-
because my conclusion is so weak, you guys don't know I'm finished, so I have to say thank you in order for you guys to understand that. Right?
But it's yeah, but it's a speech rule, I would say. It's very
No, it's common, it's extremely common, and it's a habit. And most of us don't even realize that we use that habit.
Also, it's a habit.
And we don't mean the thank you. And all I'm asking you is to really mean the thank you, if you're gonna say it. Words have meaning. Put them across. That would be my one challenge to you as Toastmasters, to really think about how you finish your speech as well. And that's very much, what do you think the three most important parts of the speech are?
The opening, the closing.
The introduction, the closing,
Main body,
and the
main
closing.
body and closing.
And the body, right? Those are the three parts of a presentation. The two most important parts, or the most important part?
Is the closing and the opening. You can have a great opening and a great closing, nothing in the middle. It will give a good impression.
And what do we spend most of our time preparing?
Main body.
The body. How many of us practice our introduction? I mean, literally stand up and practice our introduction. Thank you very much. At least there's one couple of
bit
great.
of honesty.
Most of us don't. And how many of us practice our conclusion? Okay, got one there. Great, super. And we're experienced Toastmasters. That's scary sometimes.
I think, can I say something?
Yes, please.
I think when you focus on your conclusion, it's mainly people that want to send a call for action. For me, in my speeches, I like the speeches that are useful. So for me, the conclusion is always a call for action. And that's why you have to prepare it.
What are the three unasked questions that everyone has before a speech begins or a presentation begins? You've been invited into a departmental meeting, you sit down and someone's going to be giving a presentation. What questions are going through your mind? There are three of them that go through everyone's mind.
How long is this going to take?
How long is this going to take? Most of the time that's already in your calendar. You, at least, is it really going to take 15 minutes as promised, or 30 minutes, or whatever it is? But what are the other three questions?
Is it going to be useful?
Yeah.
Right. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
What's in it for me?
Or is it waste of my time?
Or is it a waste of my time? Exactly. Exactly that. What's in it for me? Why is it going to be relevant and of interest to me? That's one question. What's the second question?
The impact on the audience?
What will
Yeah, that's sort of why what's in it for me is sort of the impact on the audience, but that's much more general. But we're always interested in ourselves, number one. So what am I going to get out of it? Not only impact in the general audience, but what am I going to get out of it?
Am I going to change my mind about something, or?
What's the exact subject?
What are you going to talk about exactly? What's the topic?
The topic is not in the program. The topic, the duration, and about the speaker name is known.
The name of the speaker is known. The speech present, the title is known.
The speaker's name is known.
Yeah, but what's not known is the agenda.
Well, the title is not always.
Yeah, what's in it for me? Basically, what are you going to talk about? Who is this character standing up and talking to me? Who is this person? What is he or she going to be talking about? And why is this relevant for me? These are the three questions that we never ask out loud, but they're going through our mind all the time before someone starts speaking. And within the first 30 seconds, we find out, we literally answer those three questions. Oh God, this is going to be another one of these boring presentations. And you end up switching off already within 15 seconds because you've seen it before. And we do this automatically. So your introduction is extremely important. And if you're looking for a structure for an introduction, well, yeah, let's just digress for a second on the topics of introduction. What are the different ways you can start a speech? A story. A story. Great.
Ask the question.
Ask the audience a question.
Like you did.
Yeah.
A statement?
A statement, a shocking statement perhaps, or an interesting statement.
A proverb?
A problem. So somehow gaining interest into the, getting the audience interested that way.
Or just simply stating what you're going to talk about.
Or just simply stating what you're going to talk about. And you generally start out with, right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am here to talk about a topic that is very dear to my heart.
Oh.
Twice already the word my and I come up. And you get, oh God, no one is here. Yeah.
And do we have to say good morning if we don't say thank you?
Once again, you can say thank you if you want to. I'm not saying don't say thank you. All I'm asking you is to mean it when you say it.
But good morning is mandatory.
No, it's not mandatory,
No.
especially if it's in the afternoon. Especially if it's in the afternoon. No.
I think
So-
you've made a really good point, that people should realize when it's the end of your speech. And we're cheating by saying thank you, because we don't really know how to bring in the strong conclusion.
Our conclusion is so weak that we don't know that our audience doesn't recognize it's finished yet, so we let them know by saying thank you. And that's the way a lot of people approach their conclusions in their speech. And then they generally run away while they're still talking. So that takes me in. Thank you very much. And walking away and have absolutely no contact with the audience at that point. And this is, and let's talk about memory, if I may. We've got something that's called the primacy effect and the recency effect. Primacy effect is we tend to remember the first things that ever happened to us. You remember your first cup of coffee this morning. You remember the first time that you walked into this, into the VIC. Don't you?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah? You remember the first kiss. You probably don't remember the first time you got drunk.
Oh, yes.
But this is called the primacy effect. The first time something happens to us, we tend to remember. And we also have what's called the recency effect. And that's the last time. You remember your last cup of coffee you had. You remember the last time you walked into this building. You remember the last kiss that you had. Like a long time ago now. But this is called the recency effect. So the primacy effect on one hand and the recency effect on the other. We've got this wonderful opportunity in our speech, at the end of our speech, to take advantage of this recency effect. So we have our slideshow and everything else, and the final slide that we show everyone, taking full advantage of this recency effect is, da-da-da-da. Thank you for your attention. Does that make sense? Does that really make sense? And how often have you seen the last slide that's up here visually supported the message that you are finishing your presentation with? Thank you for your attention.
It will be traumatic.
That's a real waste.
It's a problem.
Instead, you could have what your call for action is up there. What you really like the audience to do. And you're missing it. That's what I'm talking about. That opportunity, poof. You can do it. A lot of people do it. But is it the most effective? Worth thinking about. And the same thing with your introduction. Really grabbing the audience's attention is one thing, but it's really difficult to think of, especially in the business world, when you've got regular, especially weekly meeting types of presentations, to come up with a unique introduction.
And a call for action.
And a call for action at the end as well. Jesus, Charlie, you're really pushing them. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit off
So what should be the last slide if I don't have to say thank you for the
Call for action.
Call for action. You want the
Call for
audience to
action.
use this information.
It's a good idea.
And if you don't know what
It's a
your
really
call for
good
action is,
idea.
how the heck is your audience going to know what they should do with it?
But you should do.
That's the real challenge that we as speakers have to come up
When you
with.
say call for action, you are opening a new chapter.
No.
No.
Why am I opening a new chapter?
What is the action? Everybody has their own opinion, so you make another slide with what are the actions everybody wants.
Whether the people follow that action or not, that is now their decision to make. They can decide whether they're going to do that or not. You're not taking that decision away from them. That's for sure. You're just you're asking all of them to do something with this information. And if it's a matter of filling out this form properly from now on. Please fill out the form properly. If you don't tell them to do that, who is?
I think the way you are saying, I don't know with what type of presentations you are mentioning about. I'm a scientist, if I say call for action, people will be confused. So I have at the end, I ask the people if they have any questions on the presentation. So, I assume it depends on what type of presentation you are making and what type of audience you have. If you are just business partners, then they call for action. So scientifically we say questions. So it depends on the. So if I write call for action at the end of my talk, people will be confused.
Also, so there's other meetings in my scientific section. What we do is we tell them which CRPs we're doing and how they could get involved in the future, or in which other meetings they could do, or what networking opportunities they can use in the international field. So we try to promote like the databases and say please get more involved in all of these things that the AI is offering. So that's how we usually also do.
Yeah, that is as regards CRPs. Okay, so you are giving the information at the end what one can do at the end of CRP meeting. People write their reports and the call for action is one thing. If you are giving a scientific talk, then you don't call for the action. It's the end of the talk. It is how enthusiastically you ask the question depends on what they want to do and how.
I'm not interested in trying to argue with you whether you can or cannot in your speech ask for a call for action. That's your call to decide whether you would like to ask for a call for action or not. I am of the opinion that you can. You feel you can't,
But actually,
fine.
I do like this because this is how I solve my presentations. At the end of the presentation, because I was in a research sector also, so in the research sector you have some innovation, or you are bringing some technology into your company, or you want to hire some scientists to solve some issues. So I was repeating the issue, the challenge. So I was again repeating and repeating, these issues are there. So this is a presentation and how we can solve it. But then I was leaving it without any question, because then they were thinking, so these issues are making lots of problems for us. And so this was kind of action, but making action, but not directly I tell them. So this is how I was solving with my customers.
I would still call that a call for action, certainly.
Yeah. But I was not giving them
I think each of us have to decide for ourselves whether we can do this or not. I was just stating very categorically from my position, I feel very strongly in my coaching that I do as well with people. If they want to work through a particular presentation, we will find a call for action for every single presentation. I think it's possible. If other people don't, that's certainly fine as well. That's all.
When you have applied science, I mean, science is for applications, I would say. So it fits into what you're saying.
Okay, we're sort of getting off course a little bit here. If I could come back to the exercise at hand of organizing your thoughts. Is that okay? We can come back. It's okay. We'll talk to you after the break, or in the break, or afterwards. If you'd really like to continue to push this concept here. But I think it's pretty straightforward. Either you decide you can or you decide you can't. Either way, you're right. Henry Ford said that, by the way. I think it's a fantastic quote. If you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. It's your decision, no one else's. And the same thing with your way you'd like to conclude your presentation. It's your presentation, your decision. I'm just asking you to think about another possibility. We are, all of us, so focused, so running with our blinkers that this is the only way it can be done, and there's no other possibility, and I challenge that. I really do. Okay, so we've got our preparatory aspect done here. We've looked at what the topic was, we've looked at who our audience is, we've looked at what interests and relevance the audience has, we've looked at what the benefits are going to be for the audience, and we've decided what we'd like to ask them to do. Now, what I'd like you to do is turn the piece of paper over this way, so this part is facing you, in landscape format. And now I'd like you to brainstorm. Content. What are you going to, don't organize your thoughts, don't try to
prioritize or anything else, just simply think, what are the different points that you would like to make in your speech? And write one idea per post-it. I'd like to talk about this, I'd like to talk about that, and there's this idea that I'd like to include, and then there's this point I'd like to make, and literally come up with 9 to 10 ideas that you would like to talk about, the content of your speech. Don't try to organize, don't put sub-bullet points on here, just one idea, one post-it. And come up with 9 to 10 post-its about your topic that you've chosen. Okay? You should be writing on the post-its, not on the, yeah, because you want to be able to rearrange your ideas. Okay, you should be writing on the post-its, not on the post-its.
And you reuse it afterwards as many times as you want.
I can give you another copy of that, but you know, much more important is not only using it afterwards, it's a matter of rearranging your ideas, because you need to be able to rearrange them as well.
The group them, Carly.
Group them. Yeah, group them, organize them. Right now, I'm not interested in prioritizing, I'm just interested in brainstorming. So brainstorm your ideas, don't worry about details, no, don't put them in order. You're prioritizing again. Take them off. We'll write down the keys, but I want them on there.
Oh, there.
So you mean that I have to put the keywords there?
Just keywords, yeah, just 1 or 2 words or a phrase, that's all you need. I'd like to talk about this topic, I'd like to talk about that one, and then there's that one.
Because I thought the one topic we have to talk.
No, this is your subtopics within your speech. So you've got your topic, now this is the thing that I like to, and then I like to talk about that point, call them points, key points, you know, major points, whatever. Okay? Okay. Once again, don't think about trying to organize. Don't try to think about putting it into point 1, point, just simply ideas. Just brainstorming at this step. I'm sorry? I don't want them organized yet. It's better if they're not organized yet. It's not your brain is already trying to organize it. We're trying to just generate information first. And it's important to train your mind to do this. Generate the ideas. This is the content of your speech. I'd like to talk about this and that and that and that. If we start organizing and prioritizing without having gotten all the content together, it limits us.
So 2 more minutes to write down your ideas here, then we'll move on. And next step. If you haven't completed it, that's okay. This is just to learn how the process works here. So, do all of you have 9 Post-its? Let's assume that all of you have 9 or 10 Post-its. Now what I'd like you to do is we move into the organizing step. So now we take a look at these 9, 10 Post-its and we literally create groups. And we decide, how do these fit together? And I'd like you to literally put 3 Post-its per group. So we create 3 groups and 3 Post-its per group. That's why I have the line down here. So we got group 1, group 2, group 3. And 3 Post-its per group. Start moving them around. No, they don't go inside. Sorry, we're not that far yet. Put them into 3 groups, please.
Because I did it with you already, so that's fine.
Ah. We need to decide which 3 Post-its fit together, and I'd like you to just have 3 Post-its per group. If you find that you can't do that, take a new Post-it, take another idea, add it in, throw an idea away.
Too Germanic.
You don't have Germanic genes.
If you have 4 ideas in one, take one of them and add it on to the other ones. Take one idea and add it on and on to Post-it then. You have 3, the total of 3.
Also, you don't have one with 4 and the rest with 3.
Take the one that's got 4 and take that one idea, add it on just for the structure here of 3s. And I'd just like you to understand the structure of 3. Give it a try. Because I'm going to digress now for a minute. Why 3? And this comes back to this whole power of 3. And I'm sure that you at Toastmasters have heard of the power of 3. It's interesting, our brain works very, very well with 3s. We live in a 3-dimensional world. Well, we live in multi-dimensions, but we've got the 3 basic dimensions that allow us to be able to interact with each other as well, rather than just a 2-dimensional. So 3-dimensional world, we have the 3 primary colors which create all the rest of the colors in the rainbow. We have what we call triplets in language. And every single language that I've been able to research on, they've got triplets. Bind, bite, boom, disarm. On your mark, get set, go. Introduction, body, conclusion. Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Even in religion it comes in. The triangle is one of the strongest architectural forms.
Or you know what the semantic systems.
Pardon?
Semantic systems.
Yeah, and the semantic systems, chords. 3 musical notes creating a chord. So it's very common that we have, and this is where our brain is literally hardwired to work with 3s.
Vorspeise, Hauptspeise, Nachspeise.
Are you hungry?
If you're talking about about qualities of a product or of a person. You know, the product, this computer is fast, it's efficient, and it's inexpensive. 3 qualities. Add 4th quality to it, it doesn't flow nearly as well. And when you break numbers down, breaking them down into 3s is generally easier to remember than anything else. Our brain enjoys the power of 3. If you'd like to remember your presentation without having to you know, look at your notes again, by breaking it down into groups of 3s, you'll be able to remember that information more easily than 7 points. I'd like you to remember the following 7 points. And our brain has a very, very hard time dealing with digital information. Up to 3 numbers, really easy. Over 3, almost impossible. I'd like you to remember the following number. Are you ready? I'm giving you a warning now. Please remember the following number. There are 8,794,653 people who live in Austria. How many people live in Austria?
8.7.
Yeah, we get to the 3rd number, and that's it. So if you'd like your audience to remember the information, give it to maximum chunks of 3, not 5 points, or there are 7 points I'd like to go through. If you can break them, re-break them into groups of 3, I'd like to talk about 3 points, and then you have 3 sub-points, and 3 more sub-points. The audience is going to be able to remember that much more easily. You're making your presentation brain-friendly. And that's why I asked you to divide it into 3. Obviously, a box or a square has 4 sides to it. You can't make a box and have 3 sides. That's a triangle. Sometimes you have to have 4 points. Great. If you can divide it into 3s, that's brain-friendlier. Sometimes we can't. Fair enough. So you've got the 3 key ideas here. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to create a title for each one of these points. What is this? These group of 3, what would you give a title for that? And for these, what would be your title for these 3 points? And finally, what would your title be for those 3 points? So we brainstormed a little bit, then we grouped the ideas into 3 groups, and then we've created a heading for each one of the groups. Now it's time to prioritize. Now we move into the prioritization aspect. So we look at these 3 groups and we decide for ourselves which do we want to talk about first, which do we want to talk about second, and which do we want to talk about third. We decided that I'd like to talk about this group first. I take these 4 Post-its, now I open up the inside, and I put my title, or my heading, under key point 1. And then my 3 points, I decide which one I'd like to talk about first, which one I'd like to talk about second, and which one I'd like to talk about third, down that way, vertically.
So the most important point should go last?
Generally, I think the most important point should go last. But there's no real rule that it has to be one way or the other.
So why do you find it more important to do it last?
Because of my recency effect. If I want to be more of a trying to grab the audience attention type thing, maybe I'll do the most important point first. That'll depend on what my topic is, who my audience is, whether it's first or last. I wouldn't put it in the middle though. But that would be more of a decision based on the exact presentation itself. I might even try it out both ways and then decide, wait a minute, I don't like this way, and then you can switch it around. That's the neat thing about this, is this gives you the flexibility to try it any way you want. So your first point
Then you decide what your second point is going to be, take those 4 post-its, put them in there, key point 2, and then decide your order of the details, and then your third one. You should have something that looks like this. Content of your speech, point 1, point 2, point 3. Top of 1. And you might find while you're sticking them on here, oh, that brings me to another idea, and you might want to add an idea in on a post-it, write that in as well. This gives you the flexibility to be able to do that. If you end up with, if you say I have to have 4 points, then you add a 4th one on there, that's fine. The template is designed to impress upon you the power of 3. So is everyone this far?
Yeah.
So your introduction and your conclusion now needs to be done. So we've got our body, this is basically the body of our presentation, our speech. And now we need an introduction and a conclusion, which you've basically already written. We have here the topic, we go to the front, and we take topic. Take that topic one off, and stick it there under topic. Okay? Then we have interest and relevance, so we take the third one, which was interest and relevance, and we stick it over here under interest and relevance. And then we take an empty post-it, and we put it on agenda. And here we write, under agenda, we write point 1, point 2, point 3 here. 1, 2, 3, we write 3 points. So agenda, empty post-it, and you write what your 3 points are going to be that you're going to talk about. Make sure the headings, key point 1, key point 2, key point 3. So ladies and gentlemen, the top of my presentation is, this is of interest and relevance to you because you as scientists, you as managers, you as directors, you as fellow employees feel it's very important that, and then you can go into your interest and relevance. And so therefore I'd like to talk about the following, or we're going to look at the following 3 areas, A, B, and C. Boom, boom, boom. So you're answering the question of what you're going to be talking about and why it's of interest and relevance. Right there. And if you'd like to add a couple of words about yourself so the audience knows who you are, that's great.
So would it make any difference if I explain first the topics and then why it's relevant to you?
It's either way. The order is up to you to decide what you feel most comfortable with. What's interesting as well, and let's take, if we just digress for 1 minute and look at the news, what's the first thing that you hear in the news?
Shocking headline.
The shocking headline, not the name of the presenter. You hear the headlines first. Then, there might even be an advertising break, and then the person comes in and says, right, my name is, or this is the Tonight Show with, or this is the evenings, the 8 o'clock site with so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. But you hear the headlines first. That's what the audience is most interested in, not who is doing the announcing. That comes second. So, good point. You talk about what you really want, what are you going to talk about first, and then introduce yourself later. Then we need a conclusion. And here we have summary, benefits, and action. The summary is basically exactly the same thing. We take another empty post-it, stick it over here on summary, and we write our agenda over here on summary. Because that's what you're summarizing now. Right, we looked at da-da-da, da-da-da, and da-da-da.
And then we take, on the very front, our sticker for benefits. And stick it over here under benefits. And our call for action. And stick it over here for our call for action. Now, is that cool or is that cool? Very cool.
So I didn't get it. So benefits, we have to again put
the benefits sticker that was here.
Yep.
You just simply move it over to here on the benefits. And then your call for action that was here, the action sticker here, you just move it over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about da 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 da. The benefit for you is, and I'd just like to finish off by asking you to.
So under what circumstances you wouldn't use this type of organization for your speech creation?
If I'm doing a convincing presentation, and if I want to try to convince the audience, not just inform the audience, but convince the audience, then I need to use a different structure called the convincing structure template.
Next session.
Next session, right. So that's a convincing structure. That takes a little bit more thought. There we're being a bit more manipulative. It's called the 5-step approach.
Did you say convincing is like inspiration? Or
No, inspiration is something different.
the inspirational application maybe?
Yeah, you can use something like this for inspiration. You can even use something like this for convincing, but it doesn't work as well. It doesn't flow as easily. But it still gives you an opportunity to organize your thoughts. So if you got an important telephone call, you can do exactly the same thing. These are the different points that I talk about. And then, or if you've got a report that you need to write, you can do the same type of structure as well, just on a quick, sheet of paper or with Post-its. But you can organize your thoughts, your ideas much more effectively before you start writing.
You mentioned that the introduction is very important, but the introduction is very often the part where we are more, I would say, frightened, to feel at ease at the beginning, because we face the audience for the first time. So what kind of tricks can you, if you have, can you give us to feel completely involved from the very beginning? Because I think, concerning myself, I feel more at ease in the course of the speech, because I face everybody, I talk to everybody, I watch, I have this eye contact, but when I have to approach the podium and suddenly I have to face everybody, I feel like a bit, for a while, a bit, I would say, afraid or impressed by the audience. So, do you have some tricks to help us to overcome that fear and to feel directly from the very beginning?
Yeah,
Well,
it would take about 15 minutes. We're out of time now, or I can continue with another 15 minutes if you'd like to.
I don't want to.
I have a suggestion. Come to Toastmasters more often.
There you go.
No, I know, but I think it's the feeling of
I think it's an
everybody.
important point.
It is very, very
So does
important.
anybody can anybody not spend the next 15 minutes? Can we extend it?
Yeah, we can. I'm deciding for it right now.
I second the motion.
That means we
Okay.
have enough workshops.
All right, I can go ahead then?
Yeah.
All right, do you have another marker than black? Do we have any other colors here?
We have a red marker here.
Red one would be great.
Yeah.
First of all, it's the whole question of dealing with nerves. Is that what you're looking at? How do you deal with the nervous energy that we've got? Well, my recommendation, being the excellent coach that I am, is don't be nervous. Right, Charlie. That helps a lot. That's not the way to deal with it. It's clear. We've got nervous energy. This nervous energy is something that happens with us, and we need to be able to deal with it somehow. And to ignore it is not very effective. So, let's analyze, first of all, we've got this negative energy. that comes up, why does it come up? Why are we nervous?
Because we're excited.
I'm sorry?
Excited?
Excited?
Fear.
Fear.
Fear,
Fear. It's basically fear. One of the basic emotions, probably the strongest emotion that we have, is fear. Not faith. Fear. So we're scared. And when we're scared, what happens to our body? What does our body do?
Shaking. Start shaking.
Start shaking? Yeah.
Sweating.
And what chemical does our body produce when we're scared?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Why?
fight, flight.
Stress.
Exactly.
Stress.
Fight, flight, freeze.
Yes.
Right? That's basically the way that the amygdala is designed in our body, that gland there that says, dealing with the emotions, we've got this emotion of fight. So either we stand up and we start fighting, that the body automatically produces the extra energy for that, or run away as quickly as possible from this, from the danger. That's the flight aspect, or we freeze. And hopefully the attacker will then ignore us, because we're not moving. In a presentation, that's probably not the thing you should do. You don't want to start fighting with your audience. You want to say, bye, I'm out of here, and run away either. And of course, to stand up and it's probably not the best thing either. So we need to deal with this. We can't ignore it. Our body has produced this extra adrenaline. Now, there are two interesting facts about adrenaline that I'd like to share with you. First of all, it's extremely fast acting. I mean, it's there immediately. Boom, it's there. We're nervous and boom, it's all of a sudden there. And all of a sudden we've got this extra energy in our body that we need to deal with. But the other aspect is it also dissipates. So it disappears again. That's why it's generally the first 30 seconds that are most nervous. And then it disappears again. Once we got into the flow of things, we feel a little bit more comfortable, and that nervousness then dissipates until we make a mistake. And then boom, it's back up there again. And we need to deal with that a little bit more again. So basically, with our fear, what we want to do is, and my argument is here, rather than just focusing on this negative energy, let's take advantage of the energy that our body produces. To ignore it doesn't work. Because when you ignore it, then your feet start moving around. You see the people that are walking back and forth. You see the gestures and all kinds of stuff like that. This is all, basically, you're trying to get rid of that extra energy that your body has produced. That's basically all the body is doing, is trying to get rid of that extra energy. My argument is, let's take advantage of that energy and turn it into positive energy. The theory behind that is, once again, threefold. Surprise, surprise, power of three. First one, preparation. The more prepared you are, the less nervous you're going to be. If you've given the presentation 3 or 4 times already, or the speech 3 or 4 times already, you're going to be less nervous than if it's the very first time that you've given it. No question at all about that. If you know the audience that you're giving it to, you'll be less nervous than if you don't know the audience. If you come in ahead of time, you've got everything set up and everything's great and you feel comfortable in the room and that kind of stuff, then you'll be less nervous than if everyone's sitting there and you come in and you've got to try to get everything set up and everyone's staring at you and you're late, then your adrenaline is going to be going much higher. So preparation is absolutely key. If you come in poorly prepared, you're not going to do as well. But this is a rule of life, I think, not only a speech making. Secondly, we have here on the one hand, the body language, and on the other hand, what I call the control center. And what we need to do is we need to take this negative energy that our body produces and literally run it through these 2 areas to help us turn it into positive energy, to help it become more effective rather than less effective for us as presenters. That's the theory. We take this negative energy, we use it to our advantage with body language, and our control center is basically what I call the head, and run it through these 2 areas, and it turns into positive energy, and it helps us cancel out the fear. That's the theory. Does the theory make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And what do you do with the bad energy of the audience? Because it happens, it's not only about...
Okay, let's not get into all sorts of exceptions. Let's try to figure out what the rule is first, and then we can deal with exceptions. Would that be okay? Yeah, because otherwise we'll never get anywhere. We'll always deal with exceptions and then... Okay, so from the point of view of taking advantage of that negative energy, our body produces energy. If we can start to take advantage of that energy by running it through and making it our ally rather than our enemy. That's the idea behind it. So from a theoretical point of view, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, the question is how. Let's talk about that now. So, I assume that all of you know what a pressure cooker is. You put the vegetables and the meat in there, and you put this lid on it, tighten it down really tight, turn on the heat, pressure builds up inside, and then there's this little thing at the top that goes psh. What happens if that doesn't work?
Explodes. It explodes.
Exactly. What is this little psh called?
Super?
A valve. Exactly. It's called a valve. And what we want to, and the pressure cooker has this valve built into it to help release this energy. And that's exactly the same thing that we need to have as well. When energy is built up inside of our body, we need to create valves for it to be released. Otherwise, it will find its own way out. And there are three valves that I'd like to talk about that I think work extremely well for you. The first one is here in the area of the feet. So take that and make it more effective. And this is what I call
Ground yourself.
ground yourself. Get yourself good, solid floor contact. Both feet solidly on the ground. Feel floor contact. There's a lady from ORF that does this wonderful example. If all of you would just stand up for a second. Imagine that you have stakes in your shoes that literally come out. They're about this long. And they're in the sole and the toe of your shoe. You put your foot down and it goes, and the other foot, there, stand like that. So put your foot down and go, and the other one. Right, now that's a solid stance. You feel that?
Yeah.
Now what's really amazing about these is if you want to move, boom, they automatically retract, and you can move to another place that you want to, and then they go back in. All right, remember that.
Do we have to wear high heels then?
It's a problem of the woman, huh?
Yeah. High heels are not presenters' friends.
Exactly, yeah.
You might want to think about getting a little bit half high shoes but you know, those I think work better for presenters. And you watch all the really good presenters, the women presenters as well. They don't have high heels on.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah, with the ladies.
Yes, they do.
But really good ones.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But not that high.
Oh, Krista Coleman's always that hot.
Yeah, those are the exceptions. Once again, don't argue for all of the exceptions all the time.
Yeah.
Try to look at what the rules are. The exceptions, we can always find exceptions for everything.
Yeah,
Try to figure out what the rules are.
But those ones we see on French TV also, they have high heels. The thing is, they are already pro.
Yeah, they've
So
learned
they
how to
don't
do all
need,
this stuff.
They do it every night, huh?
Yeah. But you watch most of the people, and they don't feel comfortable in them either. They have to do it because it looks sexy. They're just trying to impress other people with that. Okay, you can see it on there, just like women like to do. All right, good solid floor contact. That doesn't mean that you're stuck in one position and cannot move. Move if you want to. If there's a reason, feel free to move. But when you finish moving, come back to good solid position. Allow that energy to literally flow out. Before you start speaking, get good solid floor contact. Get good eye contact with your audience. And in the first 15 seconds, do not move your feet. Pull that energy up and put it into your hands and gestures instead. And you watch a lot of people who are a little bit nervous, their hands aren't doing anything, and it's their feet that are moving around. And a lot of people will say, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to talk to you, and they literally take a step backwards. And that's their body language saying, I do not want to be here. Taking a step forward works much better, or just simply having good solid floor contact and bringing that energy up and creating an opening gesture instead. And the opening gesture is across all cultural areas throughout the entire world. Making an opening gesture of opening up the palms like this works in every culture. There's not a culture where it does not work. And just making an opening gesture with one hand, with two hands, make it natural, but you've got to work with that a little bit. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And you hold that opening gesture. The first words also include a movement with your hands and your feet stay still.
But what if you shake?
Pardon?
What if you shake?
Practice. 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 There's no shortcut to experience. There isn't. I wish I could give you a real good shortcut. But it's a matter of practice. And preparing yourself and having that, and it will be better. But I'll tell you the other aspect as well. Is it okay if someone is shaking when they're standing up and presenting? For you as members of the audience, does that bother you?
Totally unacceptable.
Pardon?
Totally unacceptable.
Totally unacceptable, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it is not, come on.
Yeah. We're okay with that. We're just glad that we're not the ones standing up and presenting. So for some reason, we put all sorts of pressure on ourselves as well. It's okay if you're shaking a little bit.
We are all humans, we are all humans.
Exactly, so what?
No.
So, first is having good solid floor contact. Feel free to move around. But when you finish moving, come back to the floor contact. Think about that. You really allow that energy to literally flow out through the floor. I've already talked about the idea of gestures, especially making opening gestures. Exaggerate your gesture. How many of you enjoy watching your favorite film on this size screen?
Not my favorite.
No.
We like big screens.
Yes.
And that's what you've got right here. From your belt to your eyebrows. From your belt buckle to your eyebrows or waist. From here to here. You've got that size screen to work with. And what do most of us do? I have three things I'd like to talk to you about. The first one is, the second one is, the third one is the little iPhone size screen. Take advantage of these gestures out here and out here. Think about this as your workspace, and you can move around. You can take full advantage of this whole area here. And most of us don't, because we're too nervous. No, this is where we take our nervous energy and use it for benefit by moving a little bit more. But make sure that you're moving with a reason. Then it's got some real impact to it. So exaggerate and one second longer. Hold your gesture for 1 second longer than you think is necessary, not shorter. Then it has much, much more impact. And the third valve, so that's the second valve there, and the third valve is up here in the control center. What's really amazing is the voice. How much more energy it takes to speak loudly and clearly. What we generally do when we're nervous is we drop the volume, we tend to speak a little bit more quickly, and we tend to speak a little bit less clearly. The challenge is to slow down your voice, speak a little bit more loudly, and enunciate just a little bit more. And all that extra energy that your body is producing is going directly into making your voice sound much better. Especially in the first 15 seconds. That's what really counts there. So it's the voice. And then, of course, what else is important?
Eyes.
Eye contact. Right? Having good eye contact with your audience, which means that your introduction should be so well remembered or memorized that you don't need to look at your notes for the first 10 to 15 seconds. All I'm asking for is the first 10 to 15, not the entire presentation. But if your first 10 to 15 seconds, you can be looking at your audience with eye contact while you're talking, you're going to be so much more effective. And you will feel much better yourself.
Come back to preparation. And
Your ears.
finally, your positive mental attitude. Think positively and not negatively. You're on your way up to a presentation, on your way up to speech, the Toastmasters just introduce you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here, and your whole body is just simply saying, I don't want to be here, because you're thinking it. What you think, you become. That's something that Mahatma Gandhi said. What you think about, you become. And a lot of other leaders in the world agree on that same point. Put yourself in that positive frame of mind on your way up. So while someone is introducing, you're thinking to yourself while you're introduced, the introduction is coming, I'm happy I'm here, I'm happy you're here, I've got something important to tell you. Put yourself into a mantra like that. Get in, get good solid floor contact, good eye contact with your audience, and then you start speaking. And you've got your first 15 seconds practiced really well so that you can just simply roll right into it and put that smile on your face. And we will hear the smile in your voice. And these are the three valves that we've got at our availability. Good solid floor contact, the use of gestures, and positive mental attitude, the voice, what I call the control center there. And if you practice these with your first 15 seconds, and that all ties into here, start when you are ready. And most of us start speaking before we're ready to start. Right, I'm here to talk to you about, and we're all still looking down the floor, we're still looking at our notes, we're not with our audience at all. Get yourself really well situated with your audience first. Floor contact, eye contact, smile on your face, think about your voice, think about your mantra, I'm happy I'm here, I'm happy you're here, I've got something important to tell you. And then you start in with your introduction.
What about breathing?
What about breathing? Everyone needs to breathe. Yeah, you can. There are breathing techniques that you can do ahead of time to help reduce some of that anxiety. That's certainly very, very possible as well. But I guarantee that if you work with these three elements here and practice here the first 15 seconds of your speech, you'll be so much more effective. And that will get rid of a lot of that extra energy that your body has produced, so that when you start speaking, it will flow much, much better.
No, actually about the breathing management, because I think what you asked is, because I forgot to breathe when I'm in talking. I for sure we are breathing, so if not, I will, in 5 minutes I will pass away. But the thing is, I forgot to breathe regularly, because if I see, for example, 200 people in front of me and they are not happy to have me there, also, so I'm in pressure, so then this also affects how should I summarize or structure my notes, even if I'm prepared so much. So I drop everything. I mean, yeah. So that's breathing management.
Yeah, breathing. I've got no argument. That's more of each individual needs to look at that a little bit more. If some people have a problem with that, then focusing on some breathing exercises. There are some wonderful exercises that the local speaking coaches, singing coaches can offer you as well in that area.
Maybe just 3 things to add. The other day I was talking to 15 people, and I started talking and I was laying down against a desk and I started shaking. So basically I stood up and then it stopped. So the first point is, if you stand up, you have less likely than if you just not in a very stable position, because obviously your muscles are not tense, so they might more likely to move. The second thing is, personally I do, is I open, oh my gosh, I'm shaky. And I just openly go for it, because it's self build my things. I'm just a human being, and if they and it's actually, I don't do it for the audience, I do it for myself, so I overcome that perception. So I'm okay with it, and I just make a joke out of it, and I move on from that perspective. And the third thing is, it's like when you go for an interview, you have that fear sometimes just before. The thing is, personally, I don't like to have too much waiting time before I have to go into action. I like to, if you prepare obviously, but you're switching your mind from, you've been in a meeting, and then you go in another one. And there's not like 45 minutes of waiting in the background, so it's like, what am I gonna do, or in the waiting area, or what, you know, because then it tends to build the fear or the anxiety, while if you actually keep thinking about something or engage in a conversation, you don't have time to think about that stuff. So it's just for my own personal mind.
Well, that's why in Toastmasters it's better to have the beginners start and the experienced people wait.
Okay, we're at 5 minutes too, so I'm going to I've got directions here. There are a couple of extra templates here as well. If you'd like to help yourselves read on your way out, you're welcome to. And plastic sheets to put as their comments if you want.
Great work. You provided us with a lot of information. It was practical advice, and we had fun with it. We're almost here. You provided us with a fantastic tool, and also we want to give you something.
Oh, thank you very, very much.
We're definitely looking forward to our next session with you.
Thank
Just to sound the feedback, I was not very impressed by your closing there. It was a bit like